Hey everyone, and welcome to our training on executive functions and skills. This is going to be a super exciting training to help you as the adult and also help support the children in your classroom with gaining those skills that are in the higher centers of our brain, learning to support children developmentally and appropriately, and in coming up with activities to be able to support both adults and children with enhancing their executive functions. A couple of training tips before we get started today. Make sure that your TechPeds ID is on your Tim the Trainer portal before you complete your assessment for this training. This training has been submitted to the Texas Early Childhood Professional Development System. So whenever you have your personal TechPeds ID number in your portal, your certificate will automatically be uploaded into your personal TechPeds account. So that's really important to help keep your center in compliance with both child care regulations and Texas Workforce Commission, Texas Rising Star. So make sure you're doing that. If you have any questions about the training today, you can always reach out to me either on our website when you go to timthetrainer.com. In the upper right hand corner, you can send a direct message to us. You can also give me a call. You can email any questions that you've got about the training material. Or if you need more information beyond the scope of today's training, we are always here to interact with you in a timely manner to get you the information that you need. Also remember that all trainings completed must be completed within a reasonable amount of time so that you are in compliance with the child care minimum standards. The best rule of thumb right here, the best way of thinking about it, is that the total number of clock hours of training that you complete in a single day cannot exceed the total number of hours worked in that particular day. That's the best way to keep you in compliance with child care regulations and with Texas Workforce Commission to avoid any type of wage and hour claim. All right, our objectives for today, we're going to talk about executive functions and skills. So really want you to understand the difference between thinking skills and behavior skills. We're going to talk about the left hemisphere of the brain, the right hemisphere of the brain, and understanding where all of this lands right here. All of us, adults and children, we have a dominant side of our brain where we tend to lean and idle the most. And it's important for us to understand, especially as adults, that a child brain may be idling different than the adult brain and vice versa. So understanding the difference between the thinking part of the brain and the behavior side of the brain, that's going to be really important for you. Just learning about executive functions so that we can support children in their development as they progress through their skills. And our third objective is, again, using executive functions and skills to be able to come up with age-appropriate activities to support the children that we have in our classrooms. So you might be asking, what are executive functions? Executive functions are located in the higher centers of our brain. They are the skills or the mental processes that enable us to plan, to focus our attention, to remember instructions, and to juggle multiple tasks successfully. Look, we've talked about this a lot in several of our trainings. Self-regulation and self-control is a cognitive skill that has been declining over the years. We are seeing a 40-year decline in open-ended play. And open-ended play goes hand in hand with self-regulation and self-control. So in order for us to support our children appropriately, we've got to understand these 12 executive functions and how to apply open-ended play and support to help strengthen these critical connections. Our job is to encourage children's drive to learn, but we've got to do this the correct way, without media, without tablets, all right? We want that social play. and not so much the parallel play. Let's take a look at the brain and how this relates to our two different processing systems, also known as the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain. So everyone kind of put your hand up like this on the left side of your brain. All right, and you can kind of wave it back and forth right here. When we look at the left hemisphere of the brain, these are skills, tasks that are very familiar to us. It's verbal information, it's logical information. We are always conscious of our left brain activities. All right, it's very linear, it's very literal, it's words, it's the letter of the law. All right, I kind of like to call left brain the Sheldon Cooper side of the brain. All right, very, very logical, very, very black and white. So if you were to greet somebody from the left side of your brain, it would probably look something like this. Hello, how are you today? All right. Now the right side of our brain, so put your hand up here like this. All right, the right hemisphere of our brain is very novel. It's non-verbal. It's a lot of movement. It's a lot of play, climbing, dancing, energetic. It's very emotional, high energy right here. It's unconscious. A lot of times when we're in the right hemisphere of our brain, we're having a good old time, we're laughing, we're singing. All right, you're not even aware of it. You're kind of like in La La Land right there. It's the big picture. It's contextual. It's a lot of images. It's spirit of the law. It's free. All right. So if you were to greet somebody from the right side of your brain, it'd probably look like this, right? So just lots of fun. So left brain, hello, how are you doing? Right brain, right? But we want to be aware of that. As a child is learning, they start with the right side of their brain, okay? And most of everything that we do in early education are right hemisphere activities. They are not left hemisphere. Self-regulation and self-control comes from the right hemisphere. So that's why playing, moving, singing, all right, that joint attention that we have with each other, the face-to-face contact, it's so important for the development of the right hemisphere. I can't just, grab a book and read a book to an infant, and just sit over the infant and read this book and expect them to develop appropriately. No, this book is not going to work. We got to put this book aside and we hold the baby. We play with the baby. We have joint attention. We sing. We kind of do hand movements. Do y'all see where most of what we do in 0 to 5 is right hemisphere activities, okay? And that's where we kind of put our focus with executive functions. Now, when we look at the higher centers of our brain, it takes 24 years for our prefrontal lobes to fully develop, all right? So everything we're about to talk about in this webinar, 24 years of development. You cannot be in a 3-year-old classroom and expect a 3-year-old child to have fully developed executive functions. In a 3-year-old classroom, they still have 21 years of development, all right? So want you to kind of keep that in mind. And my goal with this training today is I want to lay out some information to you before we dig into each individual executive function, because as we're going to lay the foundation and then we're going to build the house and put the roof on it, okay? But as we're going through the 12 different executive functions, I want you to be thinking about yourself. I want you to be thinking about the children that you have in your classroom, the children that you've had in the past, right? Lots of reflecting. That's how we learn. That's how we move forward, is reflecting. All right, and I kind of want you to put this jigsaw puzzle together. But we got to lay that foundation first. So what you see here, these are our 12 executive functions. Once again, our prefrontal lobes, the higher centers of your brain. Okay, we have attention, we've got time management, we've got organization, we got the ability to prioritize, we've got that working memory, impulse control, flexibility, empathy, metacognition, goal achievement, task initiation, and emotional regulation. And we're going to dig deeper into each one of these 12 executive functions so that you can kind of understand what they are and how to support the children in the classroom. But there's something that we have to do first, all right, before we look at supporting children in the classroom. You've got to look at yourself first. So what I want y'all to do, okay, is you're going to pause this video and you're going to download this adult executive function questionnaire. This is located on my website, timthetrainer.com. You can download this, you can print it, or if you want to just do it right here on your device, that's fine. But you got to understand what your skills are first. And here's the thing about executive functions. Every single one of us, adults and children, we're going to have strong skills and we're going to have weak skills. We all do, all right? Typically, we have at least 3 skills that we're very strong at. We have 3 skills that we're weak at. And it's important for you to know where you're at first, all right, before you take this into the classroom. Those of you that are doing this as a school family, so if all of the teachers and directors are doing this together, which I think is phenomenal, you want to share this because you want to be able to complement each other. When you're staffing your classroom, all right, you want to make sure that the 2 teachers that are in the classrooms complement each other. You don't want 2 teachers that are both strong in the same skills and then weak in the same skills together, all right? So if teacher A is really strong in these 3 skills, but she's really weak over here, you want the other teacher to be strong in the skills that she's weak on and vice versa, okay? Even when we're looking at management situations, director and assistant director, or director and co-director, y'all need to balance each other out, okay? So it's important to know where each of you are at when you look at this. Now this is really easy to complete right here. You've got a series of questions. They're grouped in 3 questions at a time. So like on question number 1, you're going to answer, I tend to jump to conclusions. And you can see the rubric up at the top right here. 1, you strongly agree. 7, you strongly disagree. And you got your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so when you say, I tend to jump to conclusions, score yourself, all right? And after you complete questions 1, 2, and 3, you're going to come up with the score for that group. Then you'll go on and you'll do 4, 5, and 6. Give yourself those scores, add those 3 up, all right? And come up with your total score for 4, 5, and 6. Then you'll do the same thing with 7, 8, and 9. Come up with your score for 7, 8, and 9. All right? Now, when you get to the second page right here, down at the bottom, there is a key to determine your strong and weak skills. So, for example, questions 1 through 3 are about impulse control. Questions 4 through 6 are about working memory. Questions 7 through 9 are about emotional control. And you're going to look at the scores, all right, that you added up for each of the 3 questions. And down at the bottom, you're going to be able to determine what is your strong skills, all right, and that's going to be your highest scores. What are your weak skills, which are your lowest scores, all right? Be honest with this. We're not going to grow unless you're totally honest and you answer these to the best of your ability. All right. And if you're willing to share this with your coworkers, I think it's productive, but you don't have to. Some people like to keep this to themselves, and that's okay too. All right, but that's what we want to do. What you're going to notice is in most situations, you're going to see that some people are strong in behavior skills, while some people are weak in thinking skills. So whenever you do this, normally the skills that you're strong in are in one category, the skills that you're weak in are in the other category. Not very often do they kind of mismatch. I have seen it happen before, but normally you're going to see you're dominant in behavior skills or you're dominant in thinking skills. And you can see here on this screen, all right, how they kind of break down. Attention, impulse control, flexibility, empathy, task initiation, emotional control. These are all behavior skills. Time management, organization, prioritization, working memory, metacognition, goal achievement. These are all thinking skills. Okay, and again, when you're working together in a classroom, you want to be able to complement each other. If I have a teacher that's really strong in behavior skills, but they're weak in thinking skills, then I want the other teacher in the classroom to be strong in thinking skills and weak in behavior skills. If I have two teachers that are both strong in behavior skills and they're both weak in thinking skills, then we probably have a safety issue. All right, the children may be placed at risk. If I have two teachers that are both strong in thinking skills, but they're both weak in behavior skills, then we've probably got a classroom where the expectations are too high. We don't have developmentally appropriate activities in place, and there's probably a lot of classroom management issues. All right, so you can kind of see how it's important to balance these out. Now, and again, I want to show you this before I jump into the breakdown of the executive functions, because I want y'all to be thinking and reflecting and coming up with that willingness to do things differently. All right, so let's look at, a sample incident report that you have probably filled out in your program in the past. Okay, so again, this is just a sample for you, and you can kind of see this. So this is one, on August 26th, we have a child named Kevin. The teachers that were in the classroom were Leslie and Tim, and the description of the incident is, Kevin bit another child on the cheek, breaking the skin, causing excessive bleeding. All right. And I know this is a little extreme right here, but hey, let's be honest. Sometimes these things are written with emotion. Okay. And so when we talk about actions taken, Kevin was sent to timeout and punished for his horrible choice. The next time this happens, he will be sent home and possibly expelled from the program. Right? Now, again, this is a little extreme. It's a little over dramatic. I did this on purpose, right? How many of you have seen incident reports written similar to this, right? Where the incident report was written out of frustration and emotion and wasn't written with the intent to grow. Okay, so this is what we don't want to see right here. Let's see how we can do this better. Let's see how we can improve and focus on the skill, focus on the opportunity for growth. Get out of that emotion, get out of that feeling. All right, So let's look at a better one. Same incident right here. We got Kevin as the child, Leslie and Tim were the teachers, and let's look at the description of the incident. Kevin was struggling with impulse control and empathy this morning, therefore he bit another child. When we look at the actions taken, the teachers practiced with Kevin using pictured routine books on how to ask for a toy from his classmate. The teachers helped Kevin with active calming techniques to reduce stress. The teachers also practiced with Kevin noticing his classmate's face when disappointment and fear appeared. All right, do you notice the difference between the two incident reports? Same situation, same behavior, but the perception was different. All right? Instead of writing that incident report out of emotion and feeling, we looked at the missing skills and the opportunity for growth. Kevin bit another child because he was using the only skill he had available to him. All right? So the only way to get a different behavior is to lend new skills. All right? So instead of punishing the child, instead of threatening the child, they looked at the opportunities to learn. Okay? Using those pictured routine books, practicing active calming to reduce stress, because remember, stressed toddlers bite. All right? And then, practicing the describe, notice, and acknowledge technique. Noticing the other children's face, all right? So we can get that nonverbal communication. Okay, so I wanted to paint that picture, all right? How can we do things differently knowing that the child is missing a skill? All right, so let's dive deeper into these 12 executive functions, all right? And kind of look at how we can create some age-appropriate activities in the classroom to help support the children. So the first thing we have right here is attention. That ability to sustain attention in spite of distractions, despite of boredom, despite fatigue, right? There's a lot of us that really struggle with attention. I know that this is a weak skill for me. I get distracted very easily and I go down a lot of rabbit holes, all right? So even as an adult, I recognize that this is a weak skill for me, all right? So, when we're working with children, notice or describe what you see. We want to notice instead of judge. Noticing comes from the higher centers of the brain. Judging comes from the brainstem. Judging someone is survival, all right? Noticing someone is problem solving and learning, okay? So we want to notice and describe what you see. Use attention signals, all right, such as hand movements, visual cues, songs, wind chimes, all right, to be able to hold that attention. And whenever you're using auditory attention signals, they need to be soft. They don't need to be too loud. We don't want to overstimulate the child, okay? Show how long it's going to take and how long a child has left. So again, using those visuals, a sand timer, a clock, all right, depending on the age of the child. Make the task interesting and fun so that you can keep that attention, all right? And this is what's going to help support the child. Now, with all of these that we talk about, the skill doesn't happen overnight, okay? It takes time. Children have to practice a new skill approximately 2,000 times in context before that skill is available to them. So you can't just do some of these things 1 or 2 times or for a week and expect them to get it. It takes time right here. And now that I've laid out this first one, all right, because again, I wanted to get your brain going in the right direction. And we talked about the difference between the behavior skills and the thinking skills. And you got to know where you're at as an adult first, okay? Whether you're working with a child or whether you're working with another adult. Anytime you're strong in a particular skill, okay, if you're working with someone who is weak in a skill that you're strong in, that's going to become a trigger for you. Okay? So, for example, I've already told you that I'm very weak in attention. Okay? That's not one of my strong skills right here. If I'm working with someone that attention is a strong skill for them, I'm going to trigger that person with my weakness. Okay? We see it all the time. Now, if I am weak in attention and I'm also working with a child or an adult that's also weak in attention, I'm going to be easy on that person because I get it. I understand it. It's hard, right? So I'm going to be a lot more flexible with that child or a lot more flexible with that person because we're in the same boat. Do y'all see that right there? So we want to be aware of that. So for example, time management. Now, this is one of my strong skills. I'm very good at time management. The ability to plan and forecast time. All right, how long is it going to take to get a task done? How much time do we need to get there? What are the possible delays? All right, my whole philosophy in my life is being early is on time, being on time is late, and being late is completely unacceptable. All right, so time management is a very strong skill for me. Whenever I'm having to work with someone that is weak in time management, that person is a big trigger for me because I just don't get it. How hard is it for you to understand that it takes 20 minutes to get someplace. So if we have to be somewhere at 7 p.m., it takes 20 minutes to get there. So we need to leave by 6:40, but we also need to anticipate possible traffic. And it's Tuesday and the train comes, so we need to allow 5 extra minutes for the train, right? And I think you want to pull through and get a Starbucks on the way, so we need to allow 10 minutes for that. So, we need to leave by 6:20 at this point. All right? So to me, in my brain, that makes common sense. But I know people that, got to be somewhere at 7 o'clock. It takes 20 minutes to get there. At 6:45, they're still not dressed, right? And then they want to start organizing a drawer in the kitchen. And then, you do leave and they want to stop at Starbucks. And it's like, why is this not clicking? Okay. Do y'all see it? And this happens right here. So looking at the children, time management, the capacity to estimate how much time one has, how to allocate it, and how to stay within those time limits and deadlines. That a sense that time is important right here. So how can we support, children in our classroom? How can we support adults? Provide predictable daily schedules, daily routines in pictures. If you're working with a child that is struggling with time management, use that particular child as the model in the visual so that they can see themselves, or other classmates that they can relate to. Discuss how long it's going to take to do things. All right, make it an open-ended discussion right there. Pictured calendars and schedules. All right. A day timer with visual representation. Lots and lots of picture routine books with time progressions. We use this a lot with children with special care needs right here. A lot of role playing, practicing transitions. When I talk about successful transitions in the classroom, whether we're talking about time management or not, right? Practicing transitions is critical for classroom success. All right. represent time and size right here. So, as we're getting to, telling time as a developmentally appropriate activity, you can talk about that right there. Okay, lots and lots of visuals for us. Organization, the ability to create and maintain systems to keep track of information and materials. All right, so it's not like in our adult brain we think organization is having a clean closet, having an organized drawer, having an organized desk. But for a classroom and for young children, it's the ability to keep track of information and keep track of materials. But I'll tell you, I know that for some people, if you walk into my office, it may appear that I'm an organized person. I'm really not. It just looks organized on surface. But if you open a drawer, if you open a cabinet, you're like, whoa, what's going on here? But y'all see me doing this during presentations all the time. Those of you that have seen me live, I tend to lose my clicker, my PowerPoint clicker, I tend to lose that a lot. I'll set it down in the middle of my presentation and then I can't find it, right? It's like I just had it in my hand 90 seconds ago and now I can't find it, right? That is an organizational skill right there. How many of y'all have ever, spent 30 minutes looking for your sunglasses and they were on your head the whole time? Or for us older people, our reading glasses, right? Those things right there. So how can we support the children? Play matching games, all right? Adults kind of describing how they organize, just kind of describing those actions. I put the black pens in this container and the blue pens in the other container. So, again, the describe, notice, and acknowledge technique that we use in several different aspects of the classroom. Supervise how children implement organizational systems, create those picture routine books once again, showing each necessary step for completing a task. So y'all can see the picture that I have here on the slide, how to clean up the block center. First thing we're going to do is take a deep breath. We're going to disengage stress. All right. Describe what to clean up, right there. Make that commitment that we're going to do it together and then hold each other accountable, right? So just kind of a little example right there. If you have parents of the children in your classroom that are organizationally challenged, start some small home aids by creating those picture books, showing those different steps, how to pack a lunch, how to organize the backpack. I've done this in my programs, how to sign the children in and out, proper drop-off and pick-up routines. So it's not just about educating the children, it's also about educating the adult too. And a lot of what we do is an adult first, child second model. So that includes mom and dad and guardian and grandparents right there too, right? And y'all, that is the beautiful thing about understanding and working with executive functions, is because what we offer to others, we strengthen within ourselves. So if you are a person like me that struggles with attention, that struggles with organization, focusing on this in the classroom with the children is not only strengthening the children's skills, it's also helping me, right? So that's the beautiful opportunity that's hidden in all of this. Okay, prioritizing, the ability to see what is most important and to make it a plan to accommodate it. So give directions to tasks and steps. Have the children say the steps out loud. You can put some clapping in that to help kind of retain those steps, turn it into a clapping game. Our brain loves patterns and sequences right there. Involve the children in the planning. So what happens first, what happens next right there. Create those first and then books. All right. You can put the blocks away, You can go outside once the blocks are put away. So what you do first, then you get to go outside. Turn it into that analogy. Depending on the age of the child, you give simple 1 or 2 step commands. All right. Kind of the golden rule right here is one step per the age of the child. So, 1 step demand, 2 step demand, 3 step demand. Lots of role playing once again. Lots of role playing. Next, we have working memory, the ability to hold information in memory while performing complex tasks, and the ability to draw on the past learning experiences to apply to situations at hand or projects in the future. All right. So it's integrating that short-term and long-term memory. Okay. And understanding that, some children have better short-term memory. Some children have better long-term memory. So it's the integration of the two systems right here. Ways to help right here, get that eye contact. All right, make eye contact before giving the instructions. Eye contact is always the window to the soul. Make sure you're getting that when the child is ready for that eye contact. You got to be careful forcing it, because forcing eye contact could also be a trigger, okay, for some children. Play a lot of memory games, all right? We've all played those memory games as a child. They're still very applicable and helpful for the development. We want to avoid external distractions, okay? For children that struggle with working memory, having loud music in the classroom, having a lot of excessive noise, those sound machines that are very popular right now that I wish would disappear. For children or adults that struggle with working memory, those machines can be more hurtful than they are helpful, depending on the development of the child. Create those, and I know you might be going, oh, well, we only use those sound machines at nap time. We don't use those sound machines during lesson plan time. It doesn't matter. All right? Even if it's during nap time, that's still affecting the higher centers of the brain. Okay? You want to keep that in mind right there. Once again, we're talking about visual reminders of what to do. Okay, so you can kind of see the example that I have here on the screen with the dismissal routine, right? So lots of visual reminders. Have children repeat back what was said, call for that response. Again, turn it into a fun game, all right? A fun chant that is not too assertive or aggressive. We want to keep it fun because we want this on the right side of our brain. Do some rehearsing activities right there. Remember fun ways of remembering things. Think back to whenever you were a child. How many things did you learn whenever you were a child, and you learned it through a song, right? Whether it's the presidents of the United States, state capitals, math and multiplying techniques, a lot of things like that we learned through song, and we still remember it to this day, okay? So sing a lot. Singing activates a different part of the brain. All right, it releases chemicals in the brain. Lots of good stuff right there. Call for those responses. Something that I've done in a lot of the classrooms that I work with. The adult says, my job is to keep you safe. And the teacher responds with, our job is to help you keep us safe. And that's just become like part of the school family chant. Impulse control, emotional regulation, the capacity to think before you act, allowing you to evaluate a situation and how your behavior might impact it. I like to call this the ability to hit the internal pause button. And that is a skill. Not everyone has that, okay? And so many times we expect children to master impulse control and emotional regulation, when in reality, they got a lot of work on this skill. Even as adults, y'all, and I teach all this stuff. And I will be the first to admit that this is one of my weak skills. Emotional control and emotional regulation. I have to be very conscious of this because I am a knee-jerk reaction type of person, big time, okay? And a lot of times, especially in decision making, I have to tell myself to stop, take a deep breath and relax, okay? Hit the pause button right there. If I see something exciting, that someone has an object or an item, I will quickly jump on Amazon and order it, without even thinking about it. And then I get it in the mail and I'm like, what is this, right? That's impulse control or lack of impulse control. Okay, so you can see that. Some ways that we can help support, okay, teach those routines, have them in pictures. Teach the routine. You got to practice it, all right? Have a lot of stress reduction strategies over and over again, and you practice stress reduction strategies before there is a moment of upset, okay? We tend to want to try to practice stress reduction in a moment of upset. You want to do it beforehand when the child is in the higher centers of their brain. Have a script for problem solving. Okay, what steps do we take when there's a conflict? What steps do we take to help solve a problem? Read stories, where characters have appropriate behavior. How characters solve problems, all right? Regulate the environment so that it's not overstimulating. That starts with you, the adult. The adult has to practice impulse control and emotional regulation before you can expect the children in the classroom to have it. Lots of start and stop games. Y'all remember those? Red light, green light. We played as a child. This helps with the impulse control. Clapping games where we're using mirror neurons and the children are imitating the adult. All right. Again, lots of face-to-face interaction, lots of joint attention. Okay. If you feel comfortable having a child in your lap to help maintain composure, and if the child is comfortable with that, that could be a technique too. Flexibility. All right, the ability to revise plans in the face of obstacles, setbacks, new information, or mistakes. The ability to adapt to changing conditions. You thought that I was bad with impulse control. This is really one of my weak skills right here. I really struggle with flexibility. When I've got a plan, I want my plan to stay in place. And if my day gets hijacked, it's not good, right? So again, I have to be very consciously aware of this. I have to do a lot of calming techniques to be able to practice flexibility, okay? Now, I mentioned this. I'm not trying to just throw all my flaws out there because I'm not the only one. We all have them. What I really want y'all to be focusing on is being consciously aware. Okay? It's not an excuse. I'm not making excuses. I'm consciously aware that this is a skill that I have to work on. Okay? And that's what I need y'all to do too. Okay? So to help support individuals that struggle with flexibility, provide advance notice, advance warning, for what is about to come up. Again, pictures are great because that's what children 0 to 7 have in their brain are visuals. Give children a script for handling anxiety. Okay, I am safe. Keep breathing. I can handle this, right? Break down those tasks one at a time. Choices are very helpful when it comes to flexibility right here. You can pick up the red blocks or you can pick up the blue blocks, which works best for you. All right, which do you choose? You chose the red blocks. All right, let's do it. Okay, a lot of encouragement, a lot of social stories. Create a what to do when our brain gets stuck book. All right, when we do get hijacked right there, what do we do? And our brain gets hijacked all the time. We need this as adults as well. All right, role play some of those anxious situations, how to manage those situations. Reduce the amount of time for novelty and stimulation. That can help. That's why, again, we want so many real life pictures in the classroom, especially when it comes to executive functions. All right, moving from point A to point B in different ways, crawling, jumping, doing it backwards. All of this is going to be helpful for you right here. Then we go into empathy and, once again, emotional control right here. The ability to manage emotions to achieve goals, complete tasks, and direct behavior. The ability to see from someone else's point of view. Y'all, that's what empathy is all about right there. It's the ability to see the world from someone else's version of reality. And this is a skill that has to be practiced for both children and adults. So a lot of noticing right here, and I'm going to go back to what we said at the beginning, the difference between noticing versus judging. Notice her face. Do you see her face? Her face is going like this. It is saying, ouch, hitting hurts. Be gentle and tap him just like this. All right? Label instead of judge. Marcus, you scooted over so that Lena could have more space. That was helpful. All right? During that moment of upset, reflect on the feeling. Reflect on the desires of the child. You can do this through a lot of games that you can implement where you identify expressions and feelings. Okay? Biggest thing on this one right here is focus on the ability and the willingness to see the world from other people's point of view, from other people's version of reality. It's not about who's right or wrong, okay? It's not about telling the truth or lying, all right? Lying is kind of a trigger word for me. I think that's a very strong word. Seeing the world from their version of reality. That's what we have to do. Take the stories out, okay? Focus on the opportunity for growth. Then we've got metacognition. Y'all, this is a big one right here. The ability to take a step back and take a bird's eye view of yourself in a situation, to observe yourself, to reflect and witness, to self-monitor and to self-evaluate, all right? That's what metacognition is, and this is a skill. We all need to practice this one daily right here, all right? Watching yourself from that bird's eye view, that willingness to reflect and witness, self-monitor and self-evaluate, all right? So how we can support in the classroom: ask the child how she or he feels about an effort, accomplishment, working with a friend, etc. All right. Ask them to reflect on their work or play. Have pictures of what clean, finished, looks like. All right. Asking questions. Do you have enough space at circle? Thinking out loud right here. I'll put the book I am going to read at circle time next to my chair so that I am prepared. All right? I am going to take a deep breath and calm myself down. Sometimes we have to role model that for children, right? And I'm a big believer that, of course, self-control and composure is important in early education classrooms, but sometimes children need to see you upset so that they can see you calm, right? They need to see and witness that transformation. That's how we teach, but it has to be genuine and authentic, all right, while maintaining safety. Goal achievement, all right, so goal achievement right here, the capacity to have a goal and to follow through with completion, the ability to complete that task, right? Child states what he or she wants to achieve, make those commitments, all right? I commit to cleaning up the block center after I play in it. I commit to washing my hands when we come in from outside, all right? Encourage the child. That's it. Look at you. You're doing it. You're washing your hands so that you will stay healthy, all right? Give that positive feedback for effort, for time and progress. You stuck with your project and you are halfway through. You're doing it, all right? Gradually build up the time needed to reach those goals. Use those visual cues whenever needed, all right? Have the children establish some age-appropriate goals and commitments for themselves and the class. And the biggest thing with goal achievements, celebrate. Lots of celebrations right here. Task initiation, the ability to begin projects without undue procrastination in an efficient and timely manner. You know, and again, I bet there's a lot of us that struggle as adults with the task initiation. How many of y'all have needed to do something and you put it off, you procrastinated, and then when you finally did it, you're like, oh, why didn't I do this months ago, right? This is a hard one right here because busyness and stress tend to get in the way. Y'all understand that as adults, but for children, busyness and stress get in the way. All right. Young children, you know, have stress. They have a lot on their plate just like we do. Their plate just looks a little different. All right. So help the children choose from a list of options. Those choices are empowering. So that's going to help you right there. Verbalize the beginning of the project to build awareness. You chose to pick up the green marker first. All right. You know, prompt the child if help is needed. You could begin by going and getting the cup of markers, or you can begin by getting the construction paper, which works best for you. All right. And then follow the child's success with that encouragement. You did it. Good for you. You got the construction paper and the markers and you completed your art project. All right. And then we kind of come full circle right here back to emotional control, the ability to manage those emotions, the ability to push through those difficult situations right there. Y'all, and again, emotional control is something that you have to practice over and over and over. And the way I kind of think about it is as the child continues to progress through each developmental domain, you know, each developmental domain comes with a different set of emotions and feelings. So it's almost like you have to practice and you have to reteach emotional control every step of the way, right? Just because the child had emotional control in the toddler room doesn't mean when they progress over into the 2-year-old room or the 3-year-old room that emotional control is going to go with them, all right? They probably left that down there in the toddler room because the domains are different, okay? The connections that are happening up here are different, so we got to continue practicing it. Teach those routines, have them in pictures, all right? A lot of stress reduction strategies once again. A lot of problem solving and practicing those problem solving, reading stories where characters, again, display those behaviors, all right? We want to avoid the overstimulation in the environment once again. A lot of impulse control games like we taught. Lots of joint attention, face-to-face attention. Kind of the same thing. This is the same slide you saw earlier, and this was intentional. Okay? So again, I just kind of want y'all to really focus. And y'all, this is true even for adults. Our emotional control, our ability to self-regulate is different from day to day depending on what we have going on in our life at that moment. Okay? Y'all, would y'all agree with that? It's so true. So we constantly have to be aware of this, and that willingness to practice it has got to be there. Okay. So that was a lot of really cool information right there. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope you learned something a little bit about yourself. I hope you learned something about the people you work with, the children that you're working with. And again, this is not meant to poke fun at people, poke fun of their weaknesses. That's not what this is about. This is about discovering the opportunity for growth. It's about discovering those opportunities to support and encourage each other. Those opportunities to support and encourage the children. Okay, we're not trying to diagnose anyone. We're not trying to pull out flaws. Okay, we're focusing on the opportunity. That's what this is about right here. Any questions that you have about today's training, you can message me from my website, you can email, you can call. If you need more information beyond the scope of this training material, you can reach out to me. We've got this. I want to give credit to our friends at Conscious Discipline. The adult questionnaire that we shared came from Conscious Discipline. A lot of the information that I shared with you on executive functions also came from the Conscious Discipline textbook, so I want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due. Thank you, Dr. Becky Bailey, for all of your genius work that you do to support all of us that are working in this industry, and that willingness to let us share this information with you. All right, hope you enjoyed this. Have fun. Reach out to me if you have any questions. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.